Hello, fuckers. Welcome to another episode of the JRE Review. We're just reviewing some Joe Rogan episodes. This one's a good one. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by how badass of a motherfucker Jocko Willink is. You ever think you're tough? You're not. Jocko will 100% kill you if he wanted. Ever think you get up early? You don't. Whatever time you got up, Jocko got up before you. If you look at how time zones work, he lives in the earliest possible time zone on the planet, so you can never get up before him. This episode is also brought to you by broccoli and broccoli sprouts. Grow them, eat them, sulforaphane, and live forever. Dr. Rhonda Patrick says so, and I'm far too dumb to argue. Eat them now at a grocery store or a garden near you. Some very healthy advice there. Today's episode of the Joe Rogan Experience Review is for episode 1273, Ron Funches. Ron is a very funny comedian, super chilled guy, and as Joe said multiple times, he's very jazz. So let's start the review. Welcome to the Joe Rogan Experience Review, where each week I review every single episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. What more do you want? Now, I'm familiar with some of Ron's stand-up, and he is a very funny comedian. Someone definitely worth paying attention to if you're into stand-up comedy. Has a really chilled way of speaking and is very clever. Like, he's been in the game a long time and really knows his angle. He does a lot of like personal story kind of comedy, like bringing up his kid, or I was at the store, or then I was on the train, and that kind of setup, rather than social commentary of like what nations are up to or history, things like that. So it's very lighthearted, but it's clever, really clever stuff, and I like it. And what's cool, anytime someone's on Rogan, is it gives you an opportunity to just be like, who the fuck is this guy, and really kind of delve into them as an individual, because there's so many people out there, comedians, entertainers, musicians, you name it. It's like, who do you focus on wanting to get to know? I like the way Joe's podcast is set up, because through the week, if you're interested by any individual on the podcast for whatever reason, you can just be like, okay, I'll spend a bit of time, even while listening to it, just to Google some of their work or some of the shit that they're up to. And obviously, they cover a lot of it on there. Anyway, I almost wish in a way that, at least for the stand-ups, Joe would do kind of a bit where they would like actually play some of their stand-up. I'm sure not all comedians want to give away their jokes, but if you put a couple on there, it just gives people a real idea of like where your jokes are. Maybe he could talk about like the setup or how he came up with the joke and some stuff like that. I think that would be a pretty cool way of doing it, because otherwise it's 3 hours, which I don't, dislike, but it's 3 hours of just talking about whatever. And that is cool. But once Joe jumps on to like talking about, monkeys attacking or aliens again, like he likes to get into, it is kind of taking a bit of the attention away from whoever the guest is and really what they're about as an individual. Hey, I'm not trying to give him a hard time. I just, would love to hear more about the comedian during the show. I think it would help promote them as a person, and that's why they go on there, right? This is why people go on Rogan's show and other big shows, just because it's a great way to boost your popularity, and a lot of these people are like, celebrity socialite type individuals, so that's what they're trying to do. I like how they get into, the unique thinking process of comedians. Again, when you get somebody that is up at the Comedy Store most of the time, maybe they're a paid regular. I mean, they're a full-on comedian. They're spending a lot of their time with comedians. They're very comfortable around them. They found a home there, which you have to do, because I think it would be impossible to be a stand-up and be successful without really being accepted by the comedy community. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure a few comics are more isolated, but it's you're finding a home and you're finding support amongst what is really one of the most difficult things to succeed at. To hear Ron doing well and being able to sell places out and tour and those things is, it's badass for him. I mean, it really is cool. And like many comedians, these guys start off getting pretty baked. So it's another solid stoner podcast from Rogan and guests. This one being that they're comedians, they held it together pretty nicely and keep it pretty fun. It's lighthearted and silly. I think all podcasts should be done stoned. What's the big deal? I mean, you're just listening to a lighthearted version of what somebody's saying. Let's not get too serious, folks. They immediately, Joe starts talking about things that can end civilization, right? He loves this. He loves to jump on it, right? He says it's a little bit paranoid. Maybe it is, but maybe it's just being aware. He loves to talk about the fact that a meteor can come and wipe us all out at any minute. He must spend a lot of time looking up at the stars, because if you don't do that, I don't see how you would constantly be reminded of such an idea or a threat, but he does like to stick to it. He talked about some meteor that like hit the atmosphere not that long ago, and it had the power of multiple nuclear bombs. That shit is terrifying, let's be fair. And it is going to take one of those for people to really be like, holy shit, we are only seconds away from actually being smashed to pieces. And it's kind of good that he thinks about it, right? He's thinking like bigger picture stuff. This goes back to why probably eventually Joe Rogan should just run for president. Once he gets to like 70 and he's too tired to do stand-up and all the rest of it, he should just be like, a version. Him and The Rock run for president. The Rock, maybe, who knows what positions either of them are. And maybe The Rock is the vice president. It doesn't matter. And Joe can just throw out, solid space plan, laser technology ideas with Elon Musk about how to blow these fucking things out of the sky. The next thing he's always worried about is the volcano in Yellowstone, or whichever volcano that is. It's a super volcano that's going to blow up. He's pretty convinced that shit's happening pretty soon. So, I don't know. He says it's better to live on top of it than live too far away, because it is going to wipe out most of humanity. Well, that's a depressing message, and when you're stoned, I don't know what Ron thought about this, but he thought it was quite funny, and he did say that he's like, yeah, Joe, you do think about this kind of stuff often. They talk also about the plastic in the ocean and the kind of problems that that's creating. A lot of plastic, fish eating plastic, overfishing, killing all the fish. I don't know where all the fish comes from, but fish still seems cheap. I guess we got more fish left, but it's not good, right? From what Joe's saying, they're killing all the fish way too fast, trapping everything in those fucking nets. It's genocide, people. What do you do about it? Eat less fish? I don't really like fish, so I guess I'm doing my part, but that's more of a preference of the fact that I am not a huge fish fan, rather than I'm trying to save the world. But, honestly, if you have Instagram and you follow any of those kind of like crazy nature sites, you'll see recently they've been showing these fucking massive turtles with like straws stuck up their nose. And they're like pulling these straws out. And it's brutal. It looks awful. Number one, how the fuck these turtles get straws up their nose? I don't know. It doesn't seem like that. I mean, to eat it is one thing, but why are they sticking straws up their nose? It's almost like these fucking turtles have a coke habit. But yeah, bad jokes aside, it's pretty gruesome and, something that needs to be sorted out. I don't want to run out of fish. Fish are cool. What are the big fish going to eat if all the other fish are gone? I guess they keep the shark numbers down. That's probably not too bad. Sharks probably just eat something else. Maybe they'll start eating people a lot faster. It's hard to know. Ron is a father of like, I think he said his son was like 18, I don't know, young man. And he said he gets a lot of motivation out of the idea of, raising his... Joe was talking to him. I guess Ron was able to lose a lot of weight. He was like overweight, big guy, and found a way to lose a lot of weight. And he used his love for comedy to do it, because he knew that he needed to be healthy enough to do comedy and be able to do his stand-up as often as he wanted, and therefore make good money and be successful and then provide for his child. That is a fucking cool way of looking at things. If you're looking at a way to motivate yourself and you can't be bothered to do one particular thing, right? Let's say it is go to the gym. That's a direct example of this. Then choose something else that's important to you that will benefit by the fact that you're in good shape, and use that as the motivating factor, right? Because all these things come together. All these things come together. You're going to have more energy to do some other type of task, and you'll be physically stronger and blah, blah, blah. I mean, the list goes on. So that was a great message. And they had a few of those in there. You know, it was a really light-hearted, nice, fun conversation. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Ron gets up to. He does have a new comedy special out. I don't think he said it was on Netflix, but it was on all the other types of things that you can get online that even I'm not super familiar with. The Amazon one, all the rest of it. Fuck, I'm stupid. I should learn all of those. But anyway, check out Ron Funches on YouTube. Funny fucking guy. And if he comes to your town, buy a ticket, go see him, support the dude. He's awesome. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you guys. Adios.